All right, let's get into it. I'm Michelle Morris with Consolidated Planning Group. Thank you all so much for being here today with us. Excuse me. We've got Armando Bernal with us today. He is fantastic and going to help us think about work opportunities and the neurodivergent young adult. So again, I'm Michelle Morris with Consolidated Planning Group. We do these webinars 2 or 3 times a week to try to educate the community and advocate for the community because I truly feel that the more educated we all are, the better advocates we can be and the stronger we all are as a community. Now, we do record all of these webinars and we put them on our YouTube channel after they've been presented. So if you've registered for today's webinar, you are going to receive a copy of the slides and a link to that recording. So you can go watch the webinar again whenever it's convenient for you. You can feel free to share it, anything like that. So use the chat box if you have questions or comments because we can't see or hear you while we're in webinar mode. We should be here for about an hour. Feel free to enjoy your lunch. And if it happens that maybe you're already on our YouTube channel watching this, or maybe you're listening to this on our podcast and you want a copy of the slides, you can email contact@cpgcares.net and we'll go ahead and send you a copy of those slides. So a few things about CPG before we get going, before I turn everything over to Armando. You know, people wonder, how do you fit into all of this? Well, we are financial advisors, first and foremost, that focus on serving the special needs community. Almost all of our clients have a family member or a loved one with needs. So not only have we dedicated our business to that, but we dedicate our lives to that because all of the financial advisors at CPG are also parents to loved ones with needs. We are located just outside of Houston in Sugar Land, Texas. But through the magic of the internet, we are able to serve families all across the entire United States. So feel free to share our information. We can help you no matter what state you live in. Now, on our webinars, we do tend to focus on Texas because that's where we are. But be aware, we can help you no matter what state you're in. We have over 30 years of experience in financial services, and we are dedicated to going the extra mile. We have earned our chartered special needs certification, consultant certification. We are National Social Security advisors and chartered special needs planning academy members. So we really take this seriously, and we can help families with things like lifetime care planning, protection plans for the future, how to make those big transitions, like when your child turns 18 or graduates or gets a job or moves out of the house. We can help with different accounts and vehicles where you can save money for your loved ones that they can live off of in the future and help you think about how much does that need to be? What will their future cost of care look like? We can help with state and federal benefits and local resources. And it's pretty rare to find people or financial advisors like us. Less than 0.1% of all the financial advisors in the United States focus on this like we do. So there's a lot of noise out there and a lot of confusion can come about by people who are trying to give advice and they're in trusted positions, but they don't really know. So you're in the right spot when you're with Consolidated Planning Group. Now, just some quick bits of information that we want everybody to keep in mind. The right time to start planning for the future is right now. It doesn't matter how old or young your loved one is. It doesn't matter what stage of life you or your loved one are in. The more time you have to plan, the more effective you're going to be. It's going to be relaxed. It's going to be easier, and you're going to have a longer runway to make small incremental changes that'll have a big impact. Think about what's going to happen after high school and in the future and what you want the future to look like. And be very, very careful when you think about caregivers and succession planning, because people often think that a sibling is going to make a great caregiver, but it's not always the case. It can create some tension on both sides of that relationship. So just be really careful with that. All right. And there could always be wait lists on, different residential opportunities or programs that are available. So make sure to look for a wait list and get on that as soon as you can. So I've turned everything over to Armando. He is in charge and he's going to take over from here and tell us how we can help our kiddos get ready to go to work. Thank
Yeah,
you so
yeah.
much for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And it's what Michelle was saying, right? It's to your point, and I'll go into my background in just a little bit, but we do have a lot of parents that suggest or think that a sibling is a great caregiver for this individual, that this individual is not going to be someone that is going to get a job. And so they have this unfortunate mentality and it falls on that sibling. And so that can be difficult. I believe we've done it, Michelle, a presentation before of sibling care and how to take into
Mhm.
consideration the non-neurodiverse sibling in that
Yes,
family as well.
it's very important to think about and remember that, while one of your children might need a lot more or different help, your other child still needs you to be a parent as well.
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely. So for anyone that is not aware of me, I've done this a few times now with this wonderful organization, but I'll go into a brief introduction of who I am and why I'm able to speak on such a thing. So my name is Armando, as was stated. I was diagnosed with autism at the age of 3. Doctors told my mother that I might as well learn sign language because I was never going to be able to speak. And if that's the case, I wouldn't be here today providing this presentation. The QR code on the top left here is going to lead you to our website. So that way you can gain some more information on what we're able to do, as well as any kind of considerations or thoughts that you may have. We're more than happy to hear that out. Any kind of ideas on other presentations that you would like to hear, I'm sure Michelle and her organization would love to see that as well, and we can provide
Yes.
that. But with my background, right, I was not just diagnosed with autism at the age of 3. I was also a special education teacher, first and foremost in my career. And then eventually became a board certified behavior analyst because I realized that there had to be more that needed to be done before I was able to help these children. I would have these children in my classroom, and there would be a lot of different kinds of behaviors, and I would attempt to do what I could, the best I could. But what I saw was that a lot of the times the things I tried were not doing very well. And so I looked into trying to see what else there could possibly be done. I found behavior analysis, applied behavior analysis more specifically, and that has led me into the career path I am today with owning currently Autism International Consulting, which is the only autistic owned ABA company in Houston, Texas, and one of 2 in the entire state of Texas. And so, with that mentality, I want to break down what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about the workforce, sure, but we can't get into the workforce without initially laying down that groundwork, initially ensuring that these individuals that we are talking to and working with are able to be provided with the knowledge, the expertise, the confidence, if you will, in order to make sure that this is being done effectively. We look into the different kind of avenues that these individuals can be participating in. How do we thrive in this workplace? And then finally, any kind of community connections that we can bring upon any of the people that are listening to me today. In this way. So there we go. So why the foundational skills matter here, right? We want to make sure that these core habits are what lead into the workplace. So I'll give an example is that we have some parents here probably in the audience that are saying, well, like, I have my kid and I'm listening to this just because I'm trying to prep. But my kid is 5 right now, right? Why does this really matter in this kind of situation? And the idea here is going to be that the habits that we are breaking up when they are that young is what's going to establish them within the workplace as they get older. And so those that are now having maybe that 5-year-old turned into a 15-year-old or a 25-year-old may be able to attest and say, yeah, no, I understand that because I was letting it slide when my child said, I don't want to do this, or, this is really boring, or I don't know why I have to talk a certain way, and I let that slide when they're younger, and now it's impacting them when they get older. So it's important to understand that these habits really matter. How we are acting or how we are treating our children when they're young is going to be that baseline, that kind of foundation, as I had talked about, to get them to where they need to be today. And that is what's going to cause them to either have a job or not have a job in that kind of situation. So it starts very young. Now, I want to stress here for those that are saying, well, shoot, I'm in this situation where I kind of just let my kid do whatever they wanted. I guess that's over for them. And that's not true. This is where my behavior analysis hat comes on. And it's important to understand that all behavior is learned. And we go into that in other presentations I've done here. But when I say all behaviors are learned, it means that all behaviors are going to be figured out in some form or fashion, but they can be changed. It just may take a little bit more time than maybe if this was a brand new behavior, as an example, right? So if you have a child that is doing something at 2 years old and you're able to nip it in the bud before the child gets started, that's going to go away a lot faster than if you let this child do something, talk to you a certain way, be rude in a certain way, until they were 10, 12 years old. That may take longer to resolve until they're able to do the right thing. Right. And then we get into what employers value because that is what matters here is that we can see, at least from my own personal perspective of being a business owner, is that I'm seeing a lot of interviewers come in or interviewees rather, and they're saying, like, oh my gosh, thank you for just interviewing me. I've had such a hard time finding a job as of late. And so we already know from these kind of anecdotal experiences that the job market is very hard right now. So how do we get the children that we are so, desperately in love with or really can see a lot of great things come from? How do we get them ready for the workplace? And quite frankly, I would focus on reliability and independence. And that is what we try to focus on in applied behavior analysis, and that is what we try to work on with our own children. I believe since the last time I did this as well, my baby has grown quite even more. She's now about to be a year and a half, and so I'm seeing more and more of this independence reach her, and that's what we want for all of our children. So but what we see a lot of for value is going to be reliability. Are they on time? Are they able to stay true to what they're saying they're going to get done, right? Are they over promising and under delivering? We want to make sure that they're not doing those things, that we are making sure that they're following through with what's being asked of them. So relying on ways to encourage reliability. And then the independence. We want them to be able to see some kind of skill or task that they're being told to do. And instead of immediately saying, when things get hard, well, I can't do this, this is too hard, this is too difficult, going into it and saying, I'm at least going to try. And
Mhm.
also knowing the difference between I'm going to try to then, okay, I have tried, I've tried different ways. Now it's time to reach out for help. Now it's time to get that self-advocacy in place and say, I really don't know what to do next. This is the next thing that I am going to do in this situation. I'll give an example of something that I've started to recently try to work on more that my wife has so pointedly pointed out. Sometimes I'll look for something and maybe 30 seconds later I'm like, I can't find this. And she's like, this is the worst. You need to figure this out. And so we've started getting into the habit more of, hey, sweetie, I can't find XYZ. I've looked here, here, and here. Where else do you think I should be able to look? And when you provide that kind of guidance, now that people are going to be more willing to help you. And so this kind of mentality is what I'm trying to establish for the children, the teenagers, the adults that we're working with in this kind of scenario is, do we have solutions or are they at least attempting solutions before and demonstrating this independence before going into the next step, which is trying to get a supervisor or whatever it may be. These individuals will last in a job a lot longer than those that are saying, I'm completely helpless, I'm not able to accomplish any task that is being given to me. When we have these kind of initial skills that are established, this can be developed over time, right? I was able to find things on my own, maybe not to the point that I had established before. This is something that I have learned over time and thus being able to learn from it. This is what experience comes in. This is how we can support that growth and gain that confidence is that I've had in my own job experience as well. One of my therapists will say like, "Hey, actually this behavior is becoming very difficult. Can you assist me with it?" And I will do that. And it can get resolved with me in like 5 minutes, right? Whereas that individual was working with it for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and they'll say, oh my gosh, Armando, how do you do it? Like, how do you get it done? I said, well, this is what 7 years of being a BCBA does in this situation. So the same concept with our children, right, is that when they are working a job for the first time, nobody is expecting them to get it right immediately, right? Maybe after some time they're able to get it right, but that's where the experience comes in. And with that experience comes the self-esteem and comes that confidence that we really want our children to have as well. See if that works right correctly. Sorry, I'm having some trouble with it. There we go. So there's four pillars here to keep in mind because right now our goal as the parent is going to be establishing this confidence, establishing this self-esteem. What do we need to do to better support these individuals? And so I break it down into four areas because what I find, especially with the parents that I work with, is that there are a million and one things that we think as parents that we need to accomplish for these children. And it gets so overwhelming that we're like we can't do it. This is just a lot. This I'm already doing my own life. This is my own thing, so I don't really know where to go. So what I wanted to do is try to break this down a little bit further for the parents to understand. Hey, there's only four areas you need to focus on, and then from there you can determine what area matters the most, pick that area, and then work towards some kind of goal in that way. So I'll give an example. One would be like time management. Time management is something that a lot of people struggle with, whether they're neurodiverse or not. And so we want to make sure that we are establishing some kind of set interventions in place that we can give our children so they can do well in the workforce. And that's again where this kind of ABA perspective comes into play, where we have the time management where we are saying, okay, this is a struggle, this is a behavior that I want to change in the child that I'm working with. Let's go ahead and figure out how we do that. Well, we can teach them how to prioritize. We can give them schedules, visual schedules, check off lists, whatever it may be. These are different ways to go about it. But then the key point here, though, is afterwards being able to provide that individual uh, I've learned it from my school system days where it's going to be more of an I do, we do, you do, where I do it first, we do it together. Okay, now you're on your own. Let's see if you can do it on your own. And that's very helpful for these individuals. It lets them feel less insecure about what needs to be done. It lets them feel more confident and thus being able to provide that kind of expertise that we're really wanting them to seek here, right? And through that comes also these communication basics. If they're able to provide their wants and needs, can we get this done? Now, admittedly, the individuals that we are speaking to, the ones that are trying to get a job, right? These are not going to be the individuals initially that are non-speaking, not toilet trained, that are older, because I don't know this audience, right? There might be someone here that has someone that is that quote unquote profound autism, right? We need to ensure that these individuals can provide their basic needs first. And then once these are accomplished, then we get into, okay, what kind of job can we establish? Are they going to live at home the rest of their lives? Maybe, maybe not, but that doesn't mean that they can be entirely helpless, right? They could be a bagger, they could be a stalker, they could be a things to do check off individual, they could wash dishes, do clothes, whatever it may be. There's different avenues that we can take here, right? But what matters is making sure that they have those prerequisite skills, those kind of self-help skills that are needed in any kind of workplace, because there's not going to be a lot of places that work on it. So we want to make sure they maintain this, that they're able to say, okay, these are the skills that I need to get done. Excuse me, as parents saying these are the skills I need to get done. I need to make sure that my child is able to accomplish this. Once they have these accomplished, now we have a realistic path forward to getting them some kind of job, some kind of career, if you will. I think a lot of times, unfortunately, people are looking at someone's age, a child's age, teenage or adult's age, and saying, well, they're 25, well, they're 15, they should just already be able to get this job. Yes, that's great, but keep in mind, if there was some time that was missed where we weren't toilet training, where we weren't doing feeding accordingly, where we weren't providing that kind of functional communication where they can provide their wants and needs effectively, then we're going to have a problem. Because what that leads into next is unsafe environments, dangerous behaviors that no one is going to want to have in their workforce because it can be a liability. So we need to accomplish this first. And the way we can do that as well is determining once these kind of self-help strategies are completed, moving into personal responsibility, right? Having them understand what kind of expectation there possibly can be. So whether it's being carrying their belongings or having basic money handling skills, these matter because it leads into that independence that we're talking about. And it also then leads into the problem solving. So you can see as we go through time management, communication, personal responsibility, problem solving, they all can lead into one another. Right now, I'm doing it kind of in a flow chart of time management and communication and so on, but it doesn't need to be. They can all be started in certain times, certain areas, but it's just a matter of what matters to the family to determine next. What do I need to then move forward here, right? Do I feel like my child has more problem solving concerns or personal responsibility concerns? These are all going to be different areas. I can't speak for the family. They need to make sure that they are doing what matters most for their family as well. So what I have here, and it couldn't fit in the little box, but I do want to mention this, and I do appreciate this book a whole lot because it mattered a lot to me when I had my child at first. What's called Hunt, Gather, Parent. I'm unsure if anyone or everyone knows about this book. It was something that my wife was able to find. She was recommended by one of her cousins when we were having our baby, and it was a wonderful book. And basically, what it did was that it was a mother with a child, a young child. I believe she was only 4 or 5, but she wanted to teach her child how to incorporate different kinds of chores, responsibilities, and otherwise. And so, what she did to learn a little bit more about this was that she took her and her child into various kinds of cultures and societies to learn more about how they would accomplish these skills, right? And whether this
Yes.
be, yeah, villages in the foothills or different kinds of townships or whatever it may be, it was helpful because what we are seeing a lot of the times, and it was actually really, and this brings up just a point that I had when my baby was first born, was that we were really worried, is she going to be too hot or is she going to be too cold in these situations? And my pediatrician was like, you have to think about what are the babies in India or the babies in Tibet doing right now. They are cool, but they're very adaptable. They get used to the environment that they are in. And so we have to think about that as well when we have concerns with, oh, well, will my baby, will my child be okay with the kind of skills I'm asking them to do, with the kind of things I want them to do? And again, look back and say, well, what are other children in the world doing right now? I'm not the only one with this problem. I,
Yeah.
I I need to adapt them to what needs to be done. And quite frankly, as my pediatrician said, children are very adaptable. They're able to really do a lot of things if they put their mind to it. An example that I just see in my own child right now is that they her role right now is not to just play while I am cooking or while I am doing the dishes. Her role is to watch me cut the broccoli or watch me cook the chicken or whatever it may be, and maybe I'll give her just like a little bit of salt and be like, throw it in, and giving her that kind of chore responsibility so she can understand what the expectation is here, right? So you need to ask yourself, what's one routine your child already does? And how can it be strengthened to build workplace skills? So in my situation, right, this child that I have that is learning to watch me cook or is learning to do something as simple as the salt can turn into I'm getting her ready to work um, in a restaurant one day, or I'm getting her ready to be able to be a maid somewhere at a hotel or whatever it may be. Everything that we are teaching these children when they are young leads into some kind of workplace skill. And I think that's what we forget about sometimes is that every responsibility, every chore is not meant to be, well, I'm just trying to keep them busy. What it really needs to be is let's try and get them ready for the workplace. So when we think about our teenagers, we think about our adults as well, giving them these chores. We had a patient who was about 14 years old, and the parents simply just gave him kind of a tablet or his Mario Kart and said, "Hey, you just keep to yourself and I'm going to clean the house and do these kind of things." Well, that child ended up learning, oh, I guess that my role here is that I just get to play in this situation. That's my role in the household, and that's not true, right? It's important to make sure that the children that we are working with understand what their role is. So if we have this teenager and adult that we have never prepped to get into the workforce, and instead have kind of let them be in our basement and say, you just take care of yourself, you brush your teeth, you need to clean up your toys and all of that, and that's it. Then they start to learn, oh, I guess my role in the household is just to clean up my toys and brush my teeth, and that's it. And that's not what we want. We need to remember that the children, the teenagers, the adults, whoever it may be, that's in our house, they have a different role. And no one is born, quite frankly, in my anecdotal opinion, thinking they're never going to have any kind of goal for themselves or a livelihood for themselves. They do want that. They want that independence. And it's through different kinds of experience that they unfortunately learn, oh, I guess that kind of goal independence doesn't really matter because somebody's always going to be taking care of me. And that's what we want to avoid. We want to make sure that we're giving some kind of independence in some form or fashion to every kind of individual. For those that may be more that quote unquote like socially awkward, giving them these chances to do regular day-to-day activities. For those that may be profound, giving them the chance to be able to brush their teeth independently, being able to put away one item independently. It doesn't matter. At least that one item is more independent than doing no items. And so we want to make sure that they are given any kind of ample opportunity here to see it. So I would really highly recommend anyone interested, even if you don't have a baby, reading Hunt, Gather, and Parent. I think it would be really important here. But it's through this parental guidance, this observation to give them that chance to fail, if you will, that chance to fall, that we start to see these children start to learn, oh, okay, it's okay that I attempted something because I can always try again. And then that is what gives them the tenacity they need in order to go to multiple job interviews, in order to go and find some kind of job that can really benefit their life. And at the same time, maybe even finding a job that establishes some kind of not affection. What am I thinking? Like the thing they like to do, the thing that they want to be able to do.
Passion.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
passion. Thank you. The passion that will get them that job because that's going to want them to stay longer. That's going to want them to do a good job because they enjoy it so much that they want to see that kind of success in their own life as well. So, how do we broaden these horizons, right? Because as much as I said that they have this passion, what I don't want to see is that this person who's just obsessed with space, this is the only thing that they are wanting to do is something that deals with going into space, right? And that's part of the problem here is because if we do that, then we have a very niche kind of job and role that they are applying to. And once they don't get that job because they may not get that job, they say, "Well, I've tried the best I can. There's nothing more I can do here." And I'm not going to do anything else. And then that's a big problem because what we don't want is what my mother said is I don't know what that doctor is saying. He's not going to live with past 18 years old. She wants to make sure that I can get a job, live on my own, and do all these things. I'm sure she's very happy with where I'm at right now. I have to ask her later today about that. But
I'm
when we
sure she's very, very proud of you.
thank you. When we get into the next steps here, right? How do we build that horizon? It's giving them opportunities to explore, giving them these opportunities that can lead into other kinds of activities. And that goes into volunteering, that goes into exploration, and that flexible career pathway, right? So volunteering is something that is no pressure, it's low stakes. Simply, for the day, we're going to go and help out the dog pounds or whatever it may be. That gives them, okay, maybe they aren't used to being able to assist dogs in that way, but then hey, they find a very cute dog and they say, I actually love doing this. Well, that's a new horizon that they didn't know they have. And now they have a new hyperfixation in dogs that they can participate, right, in this kind of situation. When we come into the career exploration as well, think about as they get older, and I want to think about like the different kinds of age range that we have here. Volunteering can start as simply as 5 years old, 4 years old, doesn't really matter. It's just a day that they're spending where they're going to learn different kinds of skills in different avenues. An example for my own wife is when she was younger, they did her parents took her to the zoo, and I think it was just like kind of like a clean up recycle day at the zoo. And now she is just absolutely obsessed with the zoo. She loves doing physical trainings with them, and different things like that are always going to be impactful as well. And when it comes to the career exploration, this gets into a little bit older where now we can start saying to our teenager, hey, go find a job somewhere or go find a manager or somewhere that is willing to have you go shadow them for the day. And so that's something that you can do. It's unfortunately summertime is about to be over. They're about to go into the school system again. But it leads into maybe the summers, maybe next summer, it goes into I want you to go ask for the manager at a Walgreens, ask for the manager at Walmart and say, look, I appreciate everything you're doing. Can I just shadow you for an hour or two? And I think it's a lot of people would be really surprised to see what that person is willing to say yes to. Because the worst thing that will happen is that that manager says, "Hey, actually, I'm really busy. I'm sorry, I can't do this." So they just say no and like, "Okay, move on. Let's try somebody else." Or they could say, "Hey, I really can't do that today, but how is next week? How is the next month? Whatever it may be." And now we have a new exploration here. Now they have new opportunities to try different things and learn a little bit more. So it's yes, it's feeding into the passion of that child or that teenager or adult, but it's also giving them these opportunities to try things that they may not try otherwise as well. Sorry, things are busy over here. It's crazy. But yeah, so then we go into the next step here, which is going to be the flexible career pathways, right? Being able to adapt is one thing. That's great. I'm really happy that we can get these children to start to adapt into what is being asked of them. But then we need to move into the next step here, which is going to be how do we get that adaptation to be transferred or transitioned into different kinds of careers, right? Let's say for whatever reason, I think about this all the time because it's always a big nightmare. God forbid something happens to my company, but it needs to shut down. I'm like, what do I do next? Like I can't, do I stay in the same field? Do I have to do something different? What can my career that I've established myself in do for me next, right? Maybe I can go back to teaching, maybe I can do consultation, maybe I can go into animal science, whatever it may be, but there's different pathways and I can be flexible in that way to get into something else. And so it's something to for any kind of teenager, adult, whoever it may be to consider. Yes, I absolutely am doing well in this kind of job. And for some of our teenagers or adults, they may be like, I'm doing so well in my car wash. I'm doing so well at bagging groceries or stocking groceries. Asking them next, where does that take you? If Walmart shut down tomorrow, what do you have left? Right? And having them prep in that way gives them that opportunity to figure out where can I take this job next? Okay, well, bagging as an example, bagging can go to Kroger, to HEB, to other places. So at least I have a secure job that I can go into next to try different kinds of attempts, if you will. So these are just different ways. By no means, please pay no attention to these percentages per se. It's just a matter, it kind of is a startup where we go like volunteering's first and then career exploration, then the flexible career pathway. And then we start to see more and more changes as we continue forward here, right? So I don't know why it goes a little bit slow. Do. There we go. So connecting early exposure to the success. Early exposure matters a whole lot here. Where if we can establish these kind of career guidelines, as I had stated earlier, then we can start seeing a little bit more confidence and maybe starting out with that job we're talking about. We want them to have the self-esteem, the confidence that they need to be successful before these kind of career start to take off. Because the more confidence, the more self-esteem they have, the better they can do. It helps establish their passions, their strengths to be able to kind of make these kind of different decisions that they need. If they can establish what they're good at, if they can establish what they can consider a strength, then we can see real success here, right? So it leverages that kind of local support through different ways. Look into your community programs, look into your school career centers and your workforce programs. Some examples here as well. So I'll just try to break these down. With workforce programs, there's the Texas Workforce Commission. We are providing some services for a little bit with the Texas Workforce Commission, but they can establish different ways to accomplish this kind of job growth, right? And the same thing, I don't know, it might be different now, but when I was in high school, we had a like a job coach or like a school coach that was to discuss like next steps after high school kind of situation. They do the same thing, whether you have disabilities or not. It's going to be helpful for these individuals to be able to provide that kind of support too. And then also community programs. And when I think community programs as well, I'm also thinking about ways that we can establish this kind of virtual um, goal that we have in mind. So, for instance, Michelle was saying that I'm in Spring, they're in Sugarland. We're still able to connect in this way. Same concept
Yeah.
for these parents, these teenagers and adults. Just because you might not be able to find a job in Houston where you're going in person, you might be able to do well virtually. You might be able to find a job in Idaho, Iowa. It doesn't matter, but at least you have a job.
Yeah.
So there's job opportunities everywhere. It's just a matter of being creative, maybe, and being able to look in different ways or different areas that you can establish this as well to really better support, right? So when you establish these kind of different connections here, you also ask yourself, okay, what's next? I'm able to do this. I'm able to look into these other areas. How can I get a job otherwise? Well, we also look into networking. We also look into
Mhm.
different kinds of requests, and I don't know how far my posts go as an example, right? But I, for instance, am in need of registered behavior technicians. And so I was going on Indeed. I wasn't getting a lot of luck. And so I said, you know what? I'm just going to try it. I'm going to go on Facebook and I'm going to go and say, hey, I'm looking for someone to do this job. Is anyone open to that? And I had just tens and just so many people apply that said, yes, I'm interested in this job. And I was like, absolutely, that's amazing. So we're going to continue that pathway and find that kind of networking helps, whether it be from a stranger perspective or you know somebody perspective. It doesn't matter. We can give anything a chance in that way as well. So, how do we thrive in the workplace? This is something that is unfortunate, but it's important to know in order for us to be able to thrive in the workplace. So, this is from, I would say, I believe a couple of years ago from it's a national longitudinal study from the Workforce Commission here, where we see that those with autism in their early 20s typically have a lower rate of employment. It's on the basic auto. Oh, I don't know. Sorry. I guess that's like a robot or something.
Yeah, that's someone's AI stuff. Don't worry about
Okay, sorry, it just kind of distracted me. But yeah,
it.
so with autism, it's 58%. 58% of kids with autism that are in their early 20s are getting employment, whereas those with just a simple learning disability, about 95% of them are still getting job opportunities. And that's scary to see. That's scary to see. And we have to wonder why, right? I do think anecdotally that there is this kind of stigma of where autism comes from in this play, where those with autism may not be able to do XYZ kind of things. They're very rigid, they're not able to do the job. I would highly disagree, but there's also still the stereotype that we're overcoming. I think we're getting to a point where it's becoming better and better, but it is still a problem, if you will. So, even so, that poverty is taken into consideration when we compare it to gender and disability compared to the U.S. Department of Labor. It's noted that those individuals that are between the ages of 25 to 24 that are women with disabilities have far less employment than those that don't have disabilities as well. And so this is also concerning. So these are just different statistics that I want to keep everyone to keep in mind as we are trying to establish what can we do to encourage better employment within those individuals that have autism. So we work together in different ways, right? We look through teamwork and we look through adaptability. Teamwork is going to be really significant here, and this is something that I feel like a lot of those individuals on the spectrum are not keen to, if you will, that they are not wanting to participate with others. They say, I say as well, well, I could just do this on my own. That's not a problem in this situation. But in reality, especially myself as a owner of a company now, is understanding that it doesn't matter what kind of skills you have. If you're not a people person or if you're not a team-oriented person, that company will fail. And so it's been important to us to be able to note this and say, okay, this is what we're doing to encourage teamwork, to encourage this goal. And so we can do that in different ways. We can do that through role play. We can do that through contrived opportunities, conflict resolution, listening and respecting each other. All of these different things that we're discussing here are going to be important to establish that teamwork because what is teamwork in a child? Teamwork in a child is just simply going to be sharing. And then we go into, as they get older, it turns into that real teamwork where we get into collaborative groups where we get into open communication. And when we get into that area that is going to be really difficult for those on the spectrum to be able to learn, that's when we get into adaptability. This adaptability provides this growth mindset of resilience, being able to learn from others, understanding that you're not the smartest person in the room. No one is ever going to be the smartest person in the room, right? So I just actually heard this, and it's been very interesting, and it plays better when there's a bigger audience. But I'll give an example. If everybody can tell me, does anybody brush their teeth excuse me, it goes, raise your hand if you brush your teeth with water on your toothbrush, okay? And then the next step, some people raise their hand, and then it's brush your teeth if you, or raise your hand if you brush your teeth without water, okay? And those people raise their hand, and then it says, okay, everybody close your eyes. Now raise your hand if you think you do it the right way. And then everyone raises their hand in the audience in that way, right? So it's important to understand that we can learn from each other. Everyone's going to be really different, but we need to establish that we have to be able to listen to one another, and that despite your experience, your learning tools, you're going to learn from each other, right? And we learn through feedback. That's going to be the best way that we can do that. Feedback is going to establish what we can do better, what we cannot do better in these ways. And that's where these individuals on the spectrum are going to have to learn this, right? We learn it through praise, we learn it through role play, we model it, video model it. All of these different things are going to be important. But what we see, just even without those on the spectrum, is going to be that feedback is looked at as a negative, and in reality, it's what is needed to see that kind of success rate, and what we are wanting in the kind of um, employees that we want to see as well, right? So consider the feedback. Enjoy the feedback and be encouraged by that feedback because that's going to establish progress and move away from this idea that we have to be perfect because no one is going to be perfect here. We want to make sure that they are being given this opportunity to fall a little bit, as we talked about earlier with the children, and then move into being able to pick ourselves back up and learn from each other as well.
Heard a term before that, I keep thinking about when you say giving them that opportunity to fall. A safe failure is better
Yes.
than no failure. Let them learn from it. Let them have small, safe failures.
Yeah, no, 100%, because that's what we see even in my own applied behavior analysis clinic, Autism International Consulting, is that will have these kids that come to us with behaviors, with vocal protests, whatever it may be, and they are doing all of these behaviors here. And I tell the parents or I tell the therapist, look, I would much rather them have these kind of situations here rather than out in the
Mhm.
world, especially if they're a teenager or an adult. Because what happens is that, look, I understand what the behavior is. I'm trained in this. I'm skilled in this. I understand where it's coming from. Um, but the outside world doesn't. And so, whereas in my inside world with this clinic, I may say this is a contrived opportunity. Hey, you're safe here. We're working through things. It's no problem. That individual in the outside world can say, no, he hit me. I want him arrested. That's assault. And now they're in jail. So we want to make sure that we are establishing a lot of good strategies and putting them in safe spaces where they can practice this, rather than putting them out in the world where it's kind of like at that hard level. And so they're doing this, they're going through life without all of the rules and just trying to do their best, and they're just not able to do that. So next steps here, right? What is this parent roadmap that we're discussing here? How do we establish different kinds of goals or different kinds of strategies to better support these parents? It would be this parent roadmap where we strengthen daily routines at home, being able to expand real world experiences. So a lot of times people are worried about what can be done in the real world because I'm worried about my child, right? And that's part of the safety net aspect that we can establish with the kids that we're working with, where we go from a smaller area to a larger area. So an example would be like going to a restaurant. If we have difficulty going to a restaurant, we don't start at some five-star fine dining place. Maybe we start at the McDonald's or maybe we start at home, and then we work our way up to a more and more professional restaurant where they have the skills and tools necessary to do well. And so I would recommend the same thing happens when we're looking into an employment opportunity, is that we look and see where our child is struggling and saying, okay, what kind of real world experiences do we need to establish first before we get them into this area that we are wanting them to be into? And maybe this is going to be volunteering. Maybe this is going to be exploration into the different kinds of workplaces here. All of these are going to be really beneficial to see that kind of success rate in the children that we want to see in. And then finally, being able to practice these key soft skills, right? Seeing what they do to work on and saying to them that we need to work on XYZ thing first. We need to be able to work on this kind of material before we're ever able to get into that job. And once they are able to see these skills and show mastery in it, now we start to see, okay, this child is able to do really well. Now I think they can get a job. And then finally, building a support network. From the ABA perspective here, we're able to see um, a sense of progress with the children that we are working with. We're able to see that I, as a behavior analyst, can work with these individual managers at workplaces and say, hey, talk to me if there's ever problems. If you're seeing that they're coming in late, if you're seeing that they're not talking to you effectively, if they're being rude or dispassionate, whatever it may be, let me know so then that way I can talk to them and ensure that they are able to establish the things that you are wanting them to see. And you can see a lot more success in that way when you're able to provide that kind of support rather than when you're going to say, okay, um, this is all that needs to be done in this kind of way, but all of these different ways, right? So, how do we get into the real world? We have this flow chart. We have this ability to establish our home versus our community, what can be done in the home setting versus what can be done in the community, to then finally have this positive workplace that we want to establish here. So, this could be our daily responsibilities, giving them chores, giving them different kinds of cleanup areas that they need to get done. All of this can be beneficial. Into the community aspect, which is problem solving, self advocacy, and doing areas such as this that can really help them, if you will, in that kind of way. So we want to make sure that we are seeing this expertise within them, as well as then providing this kind of avenue that they can feel comfortable with, right? Giving them the skills they need in both the home and the workplace, adapted to seeing the success in the final workplace as well. So how do we set this stage? Um, as I had said just recently, putting the home, the school, and the community all in one. Being able to focus on these skills, not just in the outcomes that are being provided, also just building that consistency. Being able to say that we did this Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, all of this is going to be really impactful for them to be able to be provided such a goal. And then being able to pick what comes next, right? Are we going to work on time management? Because we saw that as a soft skill that needed to be done. Are we needing to work on self-advocacy or communication, being able to complete personal actions, being able to complete self-help skills? All of this can be beneficial to that workforce. So I would recommend here that we continue forward in this path to see the overall success. So a little bit quicker than normal, I know, but I thought it would be beneficial for everybody as well. I hope this was a helpful presentation for everyone.
I always love listening to your presentations, and we haven't gotten many questions in the chat box or anything like that, but I just always feel so calmed, I think, by your advice. And I don't
Appreciate
know
that.
if that's the right way to say it, but you have just a way of comforting people and letting us know that it's going to be okay and we just keep working on it. And the idea I think that you're going for of this teachable moments in everyday life, we should be educating and helping, not just, oh, it's good enough that they're safe and fed, but we need our children to also be interacting as much as possible and learning. And even if that's just watching, like you were saying, that helps open their eyes and get that information out there. If you have any more questions or comments, please put them in the chat box because I do have a couple more slides. So write down Armando's contact information here. We will send it to you later on today. But if you want to grab that before I go on and or take a photo of his QR code, you'll get these slides later on today as well as a link to the recording. And if you have questions, put them in the chat box. These are some of the things that we talk about in our consolidated planning group webinars. We sometimes have fantastic guest speakers like Armando. We've had attorneys, we've had advocates, educational advocates. We've even had dentists and exercise and hobbies and summer camps. I mean, we talk about all kinds of great topics. We would love you to join us for some of these things that you should really be keeping on your radar as you're going through your journey with your loved one. You know, figuring out what is the future going to look like and how much is it going to cost? How can we start contributing to those costs or save those costs now with waiver programs, state and federal benefits, you know, setting money aside for the special needs trust maybe. And that includes knowing how those things work. That's where we come in handy, is because we know how all of those different things work, the different programs, and we can help you make sense of those, not jeopardize the benefits that you're going to wait so long to get. This is our team, that consolidated planning group. We have 4 advisors and we're up to 9 staff members. So we welcome your questions and we are here to help you. We also have Jessica Alvarez working with us now. She does benefits advocating. So if you would like for her to help you actually do your SSI or SSDI application, we can do that now. So typically we give parents or loved ones instruction and answer questions, but she actually has a program where she will sit with you and walk you through it step by step and hold your hand. Now, this link will take you to our upcoming webinars on our website. You can pre-register, and that way you'll get confirmation, you'll get the link ahead of time, reminders, and you can even submit questions before the webinar even starts. So we can try to make sure that we work your questions into our talk or answer them at the end. This is how you can sign up for your free consultation. Right now, we are still offering a free consultation of about 30 to 45 minutes, depending on how many questions you have and how much we chat. We do ask that you fill out a short questionnaire before your appointments so that we can understand a little bit about you and your family before we walk in the virtual door, so to speak. You can call or email the office. You can call or email me, and I can get that consultation scheduled for you. Also, our links to all of our social media and our certifications are below. So if you have any questions about those, you can let me know as well. So I don't see anything else for today. I want to thank everybody who spent the past hour with us, especially you, Armando, for all the great information you always provide. What areas are you located in?
I am located in primarily North Houston, with two centers, one that is a typical ABA-based center and one that is a school-based center.
Okay, fantastic. So everyone will get his contact information later on today. I hope you all have a fantastic week. Get out there and enjoy the weather if it stays sunny. Hopefully, it won't be too hot in your area.
Yeah,
And again, we're here to help. Let us know if there's anything we can do. Thank you all so much. Bye
thank you so
bye.
much. Bye-bye.